facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the member's best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to the next episode of the Biweekly Grievance. I'm your host, Dan Arlin. Well, today, folks, we finally got a tentative agreement between UPS and the Teamsters, and I'm here to give it a quick rundown of what I can share and what I can't share, and rumors and what's going on, and media blast, and it's been a crazy day. So, on the first day back to negotiations down in Washington, my understanding is very quickly, within a couple of hours, they had a tentative agreement and finished up the contract. The IBT put out a release of some highlights from it. Now, first of all, on top of my normal show disclaimer, I'm going to say that I'm reading directly from the communication from the IBT, but I already know for a fact that it has mistakes in it. And as our trusted brother, Greg Kerwood, said, you can't judge it by the highlight reel. You have to wait for the tentative agreements and seeing what the actual language says, because it can change everything. And an example that he used was the 22.4 language. Back in 2018, when we got the tentative agreement, it was made out like it was supposed to be some sort of a overtime relief for the regular package car drivers. And as we know, that was far from the truth and was a nightmare that we attempted to get rid of in this contract, and it appears that we have. So I'm going to read some of the stuff, and I'm going to give you some warnings on it. But I'm only giving it to you because I want to take a quick look at the things that we went into this contract looking for and what we've appeared to have gained and things that maybe are still missing. So the communication directly from the IBT says that historic wage increases across the board for full-time and part-time Teamsters. Now, if you download the UPS Teamsters app or go directly to the IBT website, you're going to see what I'm reading to you. What I'm going to tell you right now, there's mistakes in here that should never have been released because it's going to cause confusion. The first thing that they say, and I'm reading it directly from the paper, says, we will get $275 more per hour in 2023 and $750 more per hour over the length of the contract. Well, clearly, when you read that, that's telling you that we're going to get $10.25 pay raise over the life of the contract. And it was actually poorly written. It should say we are getting $750 more per hour over the length of the contract, and $275 of that will be preloaded, meaning that once this is ratified, it will be retro back to August 1st. Everybody, full-time and part-time, will receive a $2.75 per hour pay raise, with the remainder of the $750, which quick math would be $475, would be spread out over the other 4 years of the contract. So why they chose to write it there, I think what they meant is two different statements. We're going to get $275 more on day one and $750 more over the life of the contract. But when you read it, it makes it sound like you're getting 10, but you're not. You're getting $750 total, which is still the highest pay raise of any contract that I've seen in my 23 years for both full-time and part-time, but it's not as good as 1025, clearly. The next line says existing part-timers will be raised up to no less than $21 per hour immediately, and part-time seniority workers earning more under the market rate adjustments would still receive the new general wage increases. Now, it's been explained to me that that's a little tricky. It's not quite that clear. Meaning, an example would be anybody that's making less than $21 an hour will be brought up to $21 an hour or the $275, whichever is greater. So an example of that would be if you were at $17 an hour, you're going to go up to 21 and get that $4 difference, but you're not going to get the $275. If you, for example, are at $20, well, 21 is only $1 away, so you get the better of the two deals. So you would end up getting the $275. So you would go from 20 to $22.75. If you were over the $21, you would be getting the $275, is my understanding. So that means it's going to be different across the board, which is very bizarre to me. And there is a language, line 5 of this says that current UPS Teamsters working part-time would receive longevity wage increase of up to $1.50 per hour on top of the new raises, compounding their earnings. So the $1.50 is, I think, very subpar, but it also, we're not, until we get the actual tentative agreement language, it's hard to say what that's going to be. An example of what it could be is something like 1 to 5 years gets 50 cents more in the new contract, 5 to 10 gets $1, and over 10 you get $1.50. I have no idea what that's going to be, but that's just a quick reference of possibly what it could be when it comes out. But again, we'll have to wait to see what that is. The wages overall, yes, are historic in nature, being that these are the best raises we've ever gotten in one contract. Will it make people feel better about the part-time situation where they were to where they're going to be? Well, I mean, it's definitely going to help. It's definitely putting us in the right direction because, you know, through the life of the contract, some people may get anywhere from $8 to $9 more by the end of the contract, which is significantly less what some people thought they might be getting. But there's some issues with it, but it is still a decent raise. But what everybody needs to understand is the speculation on stuff is going to fly, and people are going to be wildly upset one way or another until we get a clear picture from the tentative agreement. So, like a lot of us, we're urging everybody to take a deep breath. Voting doesn't start until August 3rd and runs all the way until August 22nd, I believe. So we have a very long time to get this information, digest it, and decide whether we want to vote yes or no on this. It's way too early for people to be pushing a yes vote or a no vote. And to be honest with you, after what we've been through in 2018, it's kind of irresponsible for me as a person to tell you how to vote. What I will say is everyone should, when they get the tentative agreements, and you will all have an opportunity to view them, I will go over them to a degree, but I will tell you that the Roswell Hub is gotten a bunch of people, including myself, to help dissect and go through this new language when it comes down. And he's going to do a series of shows to cover all of that. I will be covering it as well, but a variety of us are going to contribute to dissecting and going through that to give the membership a general overview as to what's happening in the tentative agreements. We've all agreed that we're not going to push a yes vote or a no vote when we do that. We're simply going to go line by line in the tentative agreements and point out the highlights. What language is very good, what language is not so good, and just give you the facts and let every member for themselves determine what their priorities are and where they stand on this contract. Because Sean and Fred have worked very hard this year and have been the most active I've ever seen union leadership over this last year to fight very hard for us. And a quick glance of all the tentative agreements, or I should say the highlights that we've been given on the tentative agreements, we have made some significant gains in this contract. There are some seriously good parts of this contract. The estimate I saw today was that the Teamsters got approximately $30 billion in new ask over the life of this contract, which is wild to me. I would never have guessed that we were getting that much. But did they hit on all of the strike issues that we originally went into? It's going to be impossible for Sean and Fred, and I've said this before, it's impossible that they can fix every wrong from the previous 20 plus years under Hoffa that we wanted fixed. It's just not going to happen. Nobody gets everything they want in a contract negotiation, period. I mean, yes, this was one of the best times for us to ask for everything because the stars and moons were aligned. You know, the labor movement's hot right now. The public supports people getting their due after what we all went through COVID, and especially at UPS where we didn't get anything extra, like hazard pay or anything like that. So we had a lot of public support, but there's no way we're going to get everything we want in one contract. That's just unrealistic. So what I'm encouraging people to do is to go through it line by line, make a do's or a pros and cons list, and also to pick what your top 2 or 3 issues are, and did they come close to it? I mean, everyone's issues and what they value the best in the contract is going to be different per person. So it's hard for people to say vote no because of this one thing, but there may be 10 things in the contract that you like, and that's enough for you. So everyone needs to just judge it for themselves. So the wages stuff is, again, unclear. It does say, and this is pretty clear, probably pretty accurate, part-time wages, the new part-time wages for people fresh off the street will be at $21 an hour and will advance up to 23 over the life of the contract. So starting wages for part-timers will be 21, and in 2028, it will be $23 an hour. That's not, so they're not going to get the pay raises that the current part-timers will get. So the part-timers will be higher than that. There, it says 22-4s were immediately, will be immediately reclassified as RPC, regular package car drivers, and placed into the seniority, ending the 2-tier wage system in the driving system. Again, that's the highlight, right? Now, we were sold that 22-4s were going to be a great thing for us in 2018, and then when we actually got the language, it was garbage. I'm not saying that that's the case here. I'm just saying it's the highlight, guys, but we need to wait. We need to wait to see what we got on the air conditioning language. It talks about that. Then it talks about Martin Luther King Day is a new holiday, but yet we still don't know whether that's going to be a working holiday like Veterans Day, where we get the premium pay plus the 8 hours holiday, or if it's going to be a day off similar to New Year's Day and Christmas. We won't know until the tentative agreement comes out on that. No more forced overtime on your days off seems pretty clear cut. There may be, when the tentative comes out, maybe not. It may extend. Hopefully it's no forced overtime on your days off ever. But again, when the tentative agreements go out, it wouldn't surprise me if there's an exception for peak. We don't work a lot of Saturdays during peak, but if a lot of times when there's been like a bad snowstorm and we're backed up, then we start working Saturdays the remainder of the peak. I wouldn't be surprised if that's still in there, but if that's the worst of it during peak, so be it. But As of right now, it says there's no forced overtime on your days off. It will at least alleviate it the rest of the year, even if we had to do it then. UPS part-timers have priority to perform all seasonal work. So we haven't heard much on PVDs at all, actually. We haven't heard anything. Now, my interpretation of this highlight, which again, until we get the tentative agreement, but this says UPS Teamster part-timers will have priority to perform all seasonal support work using their own vehicles with a locked-in 8-hour guarantee. For the first time, the seasonal work will be contained only to 5 weeks from November to December. So without seeing the tentative agreement, the way I read this is that PVDs have been eliminated except for a 5-week period, which would make sense. That would be like Thanksgiving to Christmas. So they will be allowed to use PVDs according to this just for 5 weeks out of the year, from Thanksgiving to Christmas. And it turns out the rumor I heard was true, that PVDs work will be offered to our part-timers over outside hires. So that to me is a win. We were hoping to eliminate PVDs, but even if we got it reduced down to just 5 weeks from Thanksgiving to Christmas, well, if we're swamped, that's probably a good thing that we have the help. I mean, I would prefer to see them in a brown truck, but some drivers don't like helpers. So instead of having a helper on truck, they have some PVDs come take work off of them. At least it's limited and not expanded like we thought they were going to try to get PVDs year round. Also, according to this, it appears that part-timers will have priority at that work, which will give them an extra boost around the holidays for some extra pay, and it'll be a full 8-hour guarantee according to this highlight. So that's a win. It says here that there's going to be 7,500 new full-time Teamster jobs, and they're going to fulfill the 22,500 open positions, establishing more opportunities through the life of the agreement. So that's an extra 30,000 jobs that are supposed to be opening up. So they need to fulfill all the openings they have. So those aren't new jobs. They're just promising to fill them. And an additional 7,500 new jobs. So in all, there should be roughly 30,000 new employees coming to UPS over the life of the contract. And then they basically wrap it up with saying there's more than 60 changes and improvements to the national agreement, more than any other time in Teamster history, with 0 concessions from the rank and file. Who knows, guys? I'm just reading the highlights. We'll see what comes of it. But I'm going to caution you again to just hold judgment. We are so close, guys. Let's not fall apart now, attacking each other, arguing with each other, trying to interpret something that we don't know what it says, guys. Okay, guys, let's just quickly look at what we've asked for and what we got. So going into this contract, the highlights of things that we were going to demand in this new contract was an end to 22/4s. And it appears that we accomplished that, so that's a check. Although we got to wait for the language, but it appears that 22/4s are gone. We were demanding MLK Day and Juneteenth, and we got one of the two, which is usually what happens in negotiations. So we got MLK Day, so that's a check, positive. Forced overtime and 6-punch. The 6-punch part sounds pretty cut and dry that we got rid of that, although I'm still leery that there might be a time like around peak where they could still use us on Saturdays. Forced overtime, when it comes to the 9-5 language and the 8-hour request language, I'm not sure there was a ton changed on that. We'll have to wait for the tentative agreements. They increased the penalties on it, but again, I don't think many people really cared about the penalties. We cared about getting home to our families. So be interesting to see what the 8-hour request in the 9.5 language says, but it appears that we got rid of 6-punch, so that's a half a win. Livable wages for the part-timers. I think that's going to be a sticking point on the selling. I really think that based upon the way I've read it, waiting for the tentative agreements, obviously, if things are as they appear, I have a feeling the part-timers are not going to feel like they got their due. So I'm not going to give that a check. Subcontracting and PVDs. I still haven't heard anything about the subcontracting. Very little language change in the sleeper department of feeders pertaining to subcontracting. So we'll be interested to see if anything more comes out about that. PVDs, it appears we've reduced it down to a total of 5 weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas that they can use them, but scored a win on part-timers being able to fill those positions first and get guaranteed 8-hour days on the days that they work as PVDs. So half a win there. Discipline and harassment, which seemed like a huge issue going into this that we were going to nail. And so far, the only thing I've heard in the tentative agreements was that they increased penalty pay for harassment from 3 days to 5 days. But I literally can't find any person out there that's ever even gotten a 3 days pay. So every local I've spoken to, every person high ranking that I know doesn't recall a single person ever getting the 3 days penalty pay. So for harassment. So I'm not sure 5 days makes a difference if nobody even ever got the 3 days pay. So I'm interested to find out if that is the agreement, how we go about getting paid for that. Because why haven't, with all the harassment we've gotten at UPS, why don't we get the 3 days that we were already supposedly getting in the contract? Other than that, in the national language, I haven't heard anything about harassment or discipline, and that's very disappointing because somebody in my shoes that's been through the year that I had where I was accused of something I didn't do, their own records cleared me of it, but they still managed to keep me out of work for 11 months and put me through that kind of hell. I'm heartbroken that there is not any more language on that in the national that we're aware of. On the New England Supplement, I will sing my praises to Tom Murray and Joint Council 10 and the people who negotiated our New England Supplement, because as I covered in my New England Supplement episode, they hit a home run with the language on redefining the word dishonesty and limiting how many things that the company can actually walk you off property for. And all the things that are in there are egregious stuff that you would assume that people would be walked off property for. But anything else that they label dishonesty, it would be just like every other thing where you continue working until the disciplinary hearing happens. So again, great protection there, but I still thought we would see some significant movement on the national level, and it just does not appear that way. Inward facing cameras was a big thing, and the highlight from Sean O'Brien himself was that we eliminated them altogether. They will not be in future package cars, and the ones that do have it, my understanding is they're supposed to remove or undo the wiring, and I believe that's supposed to happen within the first 30 or 60 days of ratification, and they're supposed to supply proof to the union that was disengaged. Once they say they're disengaged, them brothers and sisters, if there's still a lens there, I would cover it, and they can't say that you're messing with the electronics because it's not supposed to be working anymore. So I would cover them just because I don't trust the company. So that's a win. No 5 and 7s, which I didn't even know was an ask for the company until they announced the tentative agreement that they did not give in to the 5 and 7 demand, meaning working any 5 days out of 7 because they wanted to break up our days off. but we were able to retain a 5-day work week with 2 consecutive days off. So that was a win. A lot of people had pushed for more pension, especially for the part-time pension, and we heard nothing on that. So 224 is gone, apparently. MLK Day, we just don't know whether it's a working holiday like Veterans Day or if it's like a Christmas or New Year's day off. Forced overtime, we'll see how the 9, 5, and 8 works out. 6 punch, we're supposed to get rid of. So we got some good stuff. And a lot of it is very positive. But for the things that we haven't heard, guys, don't assume that we didn't make any gains. Not yet. Because the 9-5 language, the 8-hour request, the pensions, the discipline and harassment, the subcontracting, those things could still possibly be in the pile, guys. That's what we're trying to tell you, is that we don't know what the whole package is yet. They gave us highlights, but that doesn't mean the other stuff wasn't addressed. So keep your cool till we're able to read and go through the tentative agreements. That stuff could still possibly be in there, so don't give up yet. Let's wait till we read it, and we'll figure this out together, guys. Nobody's going to leave you high and dry. I'm not. I'm going to make sure you guys are well aware of what's in this contract and what's not, and make sure you have all the information possible to make a great decision. My understanding of the schedule of events: Monday, July 31st, representatives of all 176 UPS Teamster locals in the U.S. and Puerto Rico will meet and review and recommend the tentative agreements in Washington. All UPS rank and file members will receive a list of improvements in the contract through their locals, which will conduct member meetings, and Teamsters will have several weeks to vote on the offer electronically. Voting will start August 3rd and will be concluded on August 22nd. So your reps are going to go to Washington. They're going to go over it. They're going to tell them what line by line what the changes are so that they understand. They're then going to return back to our locals and have all the information they need to go over line by line at a meeting at the hall to explain what's in the contract and what is not. We will also get copies of that in the mail at our homes to review. And my understanding is that side by side, it will show you the old language and the new language so that it's easily digestible as to what changed. Then on the voting, it will be from home. It will not be in person. I will link a video below in the show from a previous article on past contracts. This is how I believe they're going to do it, although we will get specific language from our locals, is that they will not only mail you tentative agreements at home for you to review, but they will also send you a personal identification number that is your way of logging in. And you will have the option of either logging in online to a specific website where you put in your PIN so they know that you're there voting, and you vote on your local and on the national, so it'll be 2 separate votes. Or the other way I understand it can be done is that you call a number, put in your PIN, and then vote on your local and your national ballots. Then we have all that time until August 22nd to determine whether it was a good and fair contract and whether it should be passed or not. I think some of the outrage at the moment is because people have not gotten the totality of what their expectations were with our demands versus what we believe we got. So take a deep breath, guys, and let's just wait till we get everything and we'll go through this together. I promise you, I'm not going to leave you hanging. The Roswell Hub has asked several of us, including myself, to help break down this information and get it out to the members as soon as we have the tentative agreements. So we will be doing some shows to clear up a lot of that stuff for you guys. It's going to be a hell week, guys, waiting for the information, but try to be patient. Try not to lose your cool. Let's not fight each other in the process. Everyone's going to have an opinion, but until we have the facts in front of us, nobody knows what they're talking about. Not even me. I mean, I'm just reading what was on the sheet and giving you my perspective. But what is actually 100% happening, we will go through together line by line. And then lastly, on a positive note, guys, my show has blown up in the last 2 weeks, and I am thankful beyond my wildest happiness of what I expected from this show. I have just under 10,000 views in the last 2 weeks, which I understand is driven by the need for information about the contract, but it's at least exposed my show to a great number of people, and I hope that people will like, share, and subscribe to my show so that they continue to get the information that I put out after this contract, because I plan on having a lot of content to educate our union siblings on union rights, things that can happen, ways to handle things. I plan to have a whole series. I know a lot's been about the contract lately, but I assure you I have a lot planned for the show. So please subscribe. And, you know, I've more than doubled my subscribers in the last 2 weeks, and that's been awesome. I think I'm close to 450 subscribers now. Brothers and sisters, this has been another episode of the Biweekly Grievance. I thank you for your time. Solidarity, brothers and sisters, and let's see where we stand on this contract. Talk to you soon, brothers and sisters.